There are 23 oil and gas rigs in the Bass Strait with over 600 kilometres of pipeline set to be decommissioned as the state moves away from fossil fuels. How the companies that own the rigs are going to decommission them is being discussed in the inquiry behind me. So how will the rigs be decommissioned, and what kind of impacts is it going to have on Gippsland's community? I spoke to one of the people who presented at the inquiry. They represent one of the industries that could be impacted most by the decommissioning. Executive Officer of the South East Trawl Fishing Industry Association, Simon Bogue, told me about how removing rigs can lead to unknown obstacles on the seafloor if they're not removed properly. If the top of the rig is removed, but other parts below the water remain, it essentially becomes an invisible and dangerous risk to fishermen. So how do you even go about decommissioning an offshore oil and gas rig? The federal government says the process of decommissioning involves securely plugging oil and gas wells and removing hundreds of kilometers of pipes and flow lines. Steel structures with large production decks embedded in the sea floor need to be dismantled, and floating oil and gas production facilities and their anchors will need to be removed. Many of these parts will need to be transported to a local port where they will be either recycled or sold off. The main issue for the fishing industry, according to Bogue, is where approval is granted, oil and gas companies may be allowed to leave pipes and infrastructure on the sea floor. This means some infrastructure, like old wellheads that can reach as high as 20 to 30 meters, might be left on the bottom of the Bass Strait. So how will this impact Gippsland's fishing industry? Bogue said these obstacles can become potentially life-threatening and can shrink the area that fishing businesses are allowed to operate in. If you're a trawl fishing vessel and you become stuck on that, you have to undertake a whole bunch of maneuvers to try and extract your net from the snag, he said. That can become quite dangerous and can result in the loss of the vessel, which is potentially life-threatening. Bogue said the industry's main concern was making sure the Bass Strait fishing zone remains unchanged during decommissioning. If we lose access to our fishing grounds, fishermen have to go somewhere else. If they're not going to their preferred location, they are less profitable, Bogue said. So who owns these rigs anyway? The 23 platforms in the Bass Strait are jointly owned by ExxonMobil and Woodside Energy. On July 29, 2025, Woodside announced an agreement with ExxonMobil to assume majority operations of the rigs. In 2024, ExxonMobil reported it has already undertaken nearly $2 billion of early decommissioning works in the Bass Strait, including plugging 150 of the over 400 wells in the area.